Welcome everyone, and thank you for joining Painting with Picasso's Grapevine. My name is Leanna Hahn, and I will be your host and teacher for today. Today we're going to paint this gorgeous winter scene. It is a barn in the winter, and it is filled with all those really cool elements. We've got the snow falling, we've got a lot of very cool things going on in the background, and everybody just loves a barn. It's really got this nice, quaint, very silent feel. It says winter, but it doesn't say Christmas, so it's kind of something you can put on your wall and kind of stays up there really for a nice long time. So to get going, we always do kind of a quick check on our supplies that we need. For today, I have a few brushes with us. I have a very large number 12 filbert. I've got probably a number 4 filbert. I have a number 1 round. I have a number 6 square and a number 6 filbert. As always, we are using acrylic paint. Today I have white, I have phthalo blue, red, I have some red sienna, some burnt sienna rather, excuse me, some burnt umber and some black. We always keep with us a cup of water and our dab rag. And to start off our painting, we always kind of do a check on where do we start. We kind of take a look at our painting, take a gauge. You know, what is the foreground, what is the background, where will we start, and where will we go next from there? So the background is kind of a nice, loose, very, very light background of some phthalo blue and white. We're kind of doing our background of our sky. Then we're going to work on our barn. Then we'll move into our foreground items, which is the tree. We'll work on some very loose interpretation of probably some things growing out there in the field, maybe some hay, some corn, things of that nature. Just kind of very ambiguous, not really very specific. We'll focus more on the foreground items, which is our nice little fence, and then we'll kind of put some snow falling down on the barn as well as on the tips of our tree. So to get ourselves going, I have brought with us a canvas. I went ahead and pre-sketched that out just to kind of get a good idea of the size of the barn. I like to do that if I'm going to have something that is a building structure, kind of give me a good gauge. If you're a good artist, great. If you feel like you can go for that freehand, even more power to you. To kick this off, I'm going to start with our square brush. Let's dip it in our water as always, dab it off on our dab rag, and we're going to go to it with our red. We're not going to worry too much on coverage because we're going to do a lot of dry brushing with our black. So let's go ahead and get some coverage on there. The technique is just kind of an up and down stroke. Now you're going to find that red is a difficult difficult pigment to get great coverage on. I'm not going to worry about it, like I said, just because we're going to be doing some dry brushing. We're going to put a lot of motion in the barn wood, and that will take away from the coverage. Red in particular, I find that we have to add some white to as a pigment to kind of really create good coverage. You'll notice you see a lot of that line, any of your pencil kind of shining through. But again, today, not worrying about it too much. We're just going to go ahead and get a nice thin coat on here, just getting our color. This should go on nice and easy. Once you get some placement of paint, I always kind of slop it on first, then kind of go back, clean up my strokes, get that nice up and down. This is where the movement of the boards will be. The boards are going to be up and down. So let's try and keep our strokes going up and down in the same movement or direction of our boards. So done. Pretty easy. So we'll go ahead and wash off our brush. We can actually let that sit there. Now, we're going to go ahead and move over to our very large number 12 filbert, dab that off in our water. We're going to be working between our phthalo blue and white. Now, We want a really, really light sky. If you get a little bit darker blue sky, that's okay too. Remember, this is the winter time. Winter time tends to be very gray skies. It's not a brilliant blue, bright summer sky. It's very gray. So we're going to start with white. We're going to add a touch of phthalo blue into that. And we're going to kind of mute it down as we place it on the canvas. So let's go ahead, moving left and right on the top. We'll add more white to it and kind of mute it down. If you feel that it's too brilliant, too blue, just keep adding more white. The intention here will be to have more blue towards the top. Again, these are wraparound canvases, so whenever you are touching or coming near the sides of your canvases, go ahead and wrap those around. Always try not to flick as much as possible. We don't want anybody next to you wearing some paint or your beautiful furniture wearing any paint. Come close to, but try not to get into your red, because this is so light. You can probably bring your paint very darn close without having to touch. If you want to drag and pull a little bit more blue, if you feel like you're losing some of your blue, go ahead and do so. Always try and keep your final strokes horizontal, because that is the movement of the sky. The sky and the wind is going left and right for the most part. Once you feel good with your colors, I always come in with final strokes and make sure everything is moving left and right as I'm moving down the canvas. Now we're going to try and bring this down roughly to about where the roof line ends, because that is where we're going to bring our corn stalks or our hay. There you go. Okay, nice. Go ahead and drop that into your water. We're going to move back into that very square brush, wash it up. Let's dab it off on our dab rag, and we're going to move into our black. Now I'm using this nice square brush just because it's tight and we're making very square objects here. I'm going to go ahead and color in the barn window and the barn door black. And this gives you the ability to make very tight lines, especially while my paint is still wet here. And then we move down. Now I'm moving left to right. This is just a square here, and especially black. Black is very forgiving. You can go up and down. You can go left and right. Black especially, you really will not see the direction of your strokes. Once this dries, it'll just be flat black. And again, this is where using different brushes allows you the ability to get different techniques on your canvas. I like the square brush, especially for a nice square box. Kind of makes sense. All right. Now, for you folks at home, you would give this section of your canvas an opportunity to dry. Acrylic paints dry very, very quickly, roughly about 7 to 10 minutes, and you're ready to move on. I have brought another canvas with us that is ready to move on to the next stage. So we will pick up and continue on. All right, so what we're going to do is we're going to go ahead and work on some of that that background here. So we're just going to create the very ambiguous, hey, there's something growing out there in the field somewhere. We don't know what it is, but we're going to kind of create some movement, some activity, just very ambiguous. I'm going to start with this, this burnt sienna, and we're just going to do some up and down movements. Now, I'm not attempting to get a lot of coverage here. I'm letting this dimpling show through. I do want my strokes to be up and down in a straight motion. You can have a little bit of movement left and right, but not too much. Now I'm jumping into my burnt umber and going right on top. And lastly, I'm going to grab a little bit of my white. And this is where it kind of all brings it together. And this just kind of gives the appearance of, hey, there's something out there in the background. We assume it's a field of something growing. It's a barn. That must mean it's a farm. We assume something's going on out there. You can't tell what it is exactly. We trust you're growing something. Now the tips, we're going to keep these tips growing very loose. You see, we're not going to put a lot of emphasis on where they're ending. We're going to let them kind of grow up like it's the edge of some kind of something out there. All right, very good. So let's go ahead, wash off, and we're going to move now into our barn. So we're going to grab a little bit of our black, and we're going to make some outline on the barn. We're going to go right at the top here, and we're going to create some outline, and some outline down here. Next, what I'm going to do is I'm going to come in, kind of wipe off some of your paint onto your paper plate, because we're going to kind of create a little bit of a dry brush approach. I want to create a little bit of a shadow. I don't want a lot of paint on the canvas. I just want to create a little bit of a shadow. So I'm going in very light. If you feel like you're getting too much paint, wipe it off. Same thing. Now I'm going to come down and kind of in a random pattern. Sometimes I'm going to come from the top and bring it down. Sometimes I'm going to come from the bottom and bring it up. And we're just kind of creating some weathering. We know barns traditionally kind of old. So we're just kind of creating some weathering. Go ahead, let's wash that off. Now while that is drying, let's go ahead, let's move into our burnt umber, and we're going to start placing our tree. Now trees, as a reminder, trees have limbs. Limbs do not come out straight out to the side. They develop up. So they have what I call a happy Y. And what I mean by that is we generally will start in the center and we'll pick kind of our base. Trees have a tendency to get kind of fat, and it's hard to put them on a diet. So you have to start out slender, and then you can make them larger. If you start them out too larger, they'll just get bigger and bigger and bigger, and it's hard to make them smaller. So we'll kind of say, all right, we're going to start somewhere around here. I'm going to mix a little bit of my black into my burnt umber because I just want a little bit of a deeper color. And this is what I mean by happy Y. It's going to develop up. It will never just shoot out to the side. It will have a gradual growth from the base of the tree as you move up. And I'm going to move over to a thinner brush here. I'm using my number 4 filbert right now. As you move up, you're kind of letting it move out. Remember, at the base, you're going to have it thicker. As it moves out, it's going to get thinner. So if you find you've gone too thick here, you have to come back and make it proportionally make sense. It has to be thicker at the base to hold the size of the limb that you've created out here. So if you've made a mistake, you can fix it. You just have to come back. Now, right here is where we call the happy Y. This is where you make a little smiley face. So it's a Y. This kind of resembles a Y and a little smiley face. You put those two elements together, you will have an awesome looking tree. Also, don't forget, trees are wonky looking. So they are never straight and they get thick at the bottom. So remember to let your trees grow, let them be bumpy, and let them be thicker at the base, thinner, and don't forget those happy Ys. If you find, and another element I find that people do is what I call a stop short. So I'll give you an example. This right here is a stop short. That's a very thick branch. What you need to do is still let it continue until it becomes very thin. It has to have the opportunity to become very thin, very slender, and almost disappear into nothing. When you have two branches that are coming together, again, it looks more realistic to have that little oval. That oval join is far more common in nature than the very tight join. So if you do that, again, they're going to be much more realistic looking. People are going to go, wow, that is the coolest looking tree I have ever seen. And don't forget, make some of your limbs point down, point up. They don't all have to be going in the same direction. Feel free to let them cross over each other. Let them grow. They can go off. They can go off the page. Don't feel that you have to keep all of your trees in sight. The more uncontrollable they become, the cooler they kind of look. So, wonky trees, happy Y, uncontrollable, those are the elements to very good trees. All right, so I think we got some good trees going here. So, good placement. Now what we're going to do at this point is we're going to start adding in our little fence line, because everybody loves a fence. Can't have a barn, can't have a nice little farm here without a fence. So still working with that number 4 very quickly. Let's go ahead, using that nice dark burnt umber, we're just going to go right across. We're going to make sure that tree line is behind, or rather the fence line is behind the tree. We're going to make our supporting items, thicker than the ones going across. Let me grab some more white. And we're going to decide where is that snow falling. So that's going to be very important. So I'm going to assume that the snow is falling this way, the wind is falling this way, so pretty much things are going to be falling to the left side. Make sure whatever you do, that is consistent. That will make your painting look more realistic, quite frankly. So go ahead, place your snow on top and then to the left. So on top and then to the left. There you go. All right, now I'm not going to go ahead and spend all afternoon placing snow all over the tree. That's for you folks at home to really enjoy yourself. But I will start a few placement and just kind of give you the idea. This is not a scientific technique. This is really just blobbing, good old-fashioned blobbing. Remember, snow kind of builds up in the crevices, so go ahead, place some snow in the crevices. Place snow on top, and just where you think it makes sense that snow would land. If snow is falling this way and blowing, landing to the left. Go ahead, do the same thing on the top of your roof line. Place snow here. What makes it really cool and interesting is when you add icicles. So go ahead and add some icicles. Make sure the icicles are thicker at the top and then start to drip down. Don't make them spaced evenly. Add them randomly. So if you add a bunch of icicles, do not make them all the same size. You'll hear me say this over and over again. Nature is not consistent. You will not see all the same icicles, all the same size. Let's go ahead and add an outline here. We're going to do the same thing with this nice barn door. Typically, barn doors have that really cool kind of outline that kind of designates, hey, I'm a barn door. And then we got some kind of cool build up here. It's a little bit of snow. Remember, folks, that this is acrylic paint, and if you want it to be more brilliant white, you're going to have to wait till it dries a little bit and add another layer of white. So take your time, let this dry. Go ahead, dab in some paint right now. Let it dry, come back to it. Don't forget, snow lands on the ground. Do some more of that dabbing. Remember, people have a tendency to pattern, so as you're placing your paintbrush onto your canvas, turn it each time you touch the canvas. That will force you to create a different image every time you touch the canvas. That will help you to stay away from patterns. I hope that you have enjoyed this wonderful winter scene. You've gained some new techniques, some nice little cheats. We've helped you take the scary out of painting. If you'd like to get some more information on doing one of these beautiful paintings, send us an email to info@picassosgrapevine.com. Thank you so much.